and welcome back to the Procrastination Podcast with your host, Emma. In today's podcast episode, I wanted to talk about a topic that came to mind because I received a very mean comment, like it was supposed to be a mean comment, but it just made me laugh so much. I'm gonna read it out and then you might see where I'm kind of going with today's episode. So, well, firstly, how are you doing? We've not spoken for so long. I've been so inconsistent with this podcast. And let me tell you something. I receive more messages to do more podcast episodes than I do YouTube videos. Like, I receive more comments and more DMs and more emails from people saying, like, Emma, please, can you do more podcast episodes? I love your podcast. And I receive, more of them than I do comments for YouTube videos. So it's great. So I hope you're doing well. So this is the comment. It's by John Buffalo. I am 97. Like, that's literally his name. So John Buffalo has said, "You are a fake northerner pretending to be like me. I am from Surrey. I can smell your northern accent a mile off with my hearing." You Sorry, it just makes me laugh. This old guy. Oh God. Okay. There's more, right? You are a scam artist and should stay in your lane instead of trying to be something that you are not. And it just got me thinking, you are a fake northerner pretending to be like me. Can you imagine just like this guy, John Buffalo, 97 years old, thinking that this 30-year-old northern girl, this English teacher, wants to be like him, and she's pretending to be like him because he's from Surrey. Oh, goodness me. Anyway, it just made me laugh because this guy was clearly trying to be a dickhead. And, if he actually had a look on my YouTube channel, one of my most popular videos is a Yorkshire accent video. I actually teach different Yorkshire accents, like different features of different accents in Yorkshire. And he just looks an absolute tit. He just looks such an idiot. So yeah, well done, John. You did make me chuckle. Though you are a dickhead. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this, you are a scam artist and pretending to be someone, right? It got me thinking about fake English teachers. Now, there are a lot of them around, and I've had quite a few people also accuse me of being a fake English teacher, which makes me a little bit angry because you'll see why. I'll talk about why, but it just seemed to be this term that people throw around a lot is you're a fake teacher, and then you ask them why do you suspect me of being fake, and they're like, because you didn't reply to my question. And it's like, whoa, okay, so that's what makes me a fake. If that's the case, then I'm a fucking huge phony because I don't respond to every single comment I get, unfortunately. I would love to sit on YouTube and Instagram replying to every comment of people asking me for my fucking WhatsApp number. This just reminded me, someone, like when I asked about, because I asked on YouTube, can people please stop asking me for my WhatsApp number because it's getting like out of hand now. Like I would literally log on to check my comments on YouTube, and I would say 1 in 5 of them were, what's your address? What's your WhatsApp number? Give me your telephone number. Give me your personal contact info. Please tell me where you live. And they were just asking these really inappropriate questions about like private details. And it just makes me think like, do you not realize how weird you're being? Like, you're being really, really weird. So I just asked people, like, can you please just stop? And I asked very nicely. And a lot of people, and I must say all men, they really, really didn't like that. They did not like being told, please stop asking me these questions. They're not appropriate. And some people took great offense, which is just so funny, the things that people take offense to. But yeah, some people are just very sensitive and they just don't like being told what to do. It's so funny. People are so funny. Anyway, I'm going off track. I need to stay on track. So I wanted to talk about how to choose an English teacher because there are so many, let's say, fake. Okay, I'm using, for the podcast listeners, I'm using quotation marks here, like fake teachers, right? There are so many kind of floating around, and I'm going to define what I mean by a fake teacher, okay? And I think a lot of people can share this definition with me. So in this particular podcast episode, by fake teacher, I'm going to refer to people who have no experience in teaching English. They have no qualifications with regards to teaching English as a foreign language. And they are simply just in this industry either for the money or for the fame. And by the fame, I mean like the popularity and things like that on social media. So that's my definition of what I'm giving for this podcast episode, just to make it clear, because many people may have their own definitions. Oh, I just thought of another thing I wanted to mention, because I've got quite a list. Like I was planning about things that I wanted to talk about. What was it? Oh yeah, yeah. What are they called? Okay. Oh my goodness. You do not want to read my writing. Okay. Yeah. This is a really big one. I can't believe I nearly missed this one off. So, how to choose an English teacher. Let's get into it now. We've done a little bit of an intro and a rant about people. Some things to think about when you're choosing an English teacher. These are in no particular order, right? I've just thrown all of my thoughts on a piece of paper. But one of the things you need to think about is whether you want a group lesson or a one-to-one lesson. Now, if money is a bit more of an issue, like you need to consider money a little bit more, then perhaps group lessons are better for you. They are usually more affordable. The downside to group lessons is that you're not going to get that one-on-one time with a teacher. However, when you're looking into group lessons, do make sure you find out how many students will be in that lesson. For example, sometimes schools do up to 5 students in a lesson, which is okay, actually. Like, if you're in a class with 4 other students, that's perfectly fine. You should be able to find the time to talk and get some of that speaking practice in and a little bit of one-to-one time with that teacher. But let's say you're going to be in a class with 20 other students, then that's not going to be great. And trust me, I've been the teacher and I've been the student in both of those different scenarios where I've been in a small group compared to a very, very big group of 20, 30 people. And it is not nice being in that big group of 20, 30 people. So it may be cheaper taking group lessons, but do check that you're not going to be in a huge group. You really want that one-to-one time, just a little bit, at least, with the teacher. But if the poor teacher's in a class with 30 students, that's going to be really tricky. So think about whether you want one-to-one classes or group classes. For me personally, I don't mind which one. I'm talking from a student's perspective here, okay? I like both. I enjoy both. I think they offer different things. When you want something that's a lot more personalized and catered and tailored towards you, your needs and your goals, then one-to-one lessons is much better. But if you're wanting maybe just something more of the social aspect, or if you're wanting to get that experience with practicing with other people, then group lessons are fantastic. They help give you that exposure to group conversations, which you wouldn't be able to have if you just had one-on-one lessons. So you get used to, what's the word? Like, you get used to not interrupting, but you get used to putting yourself, I'm trying to think what the word is. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's a good expression. It's on the tip of my tongue. Like, I'm trying to think of it and I can't think. You get used to, like, taking part in discussions. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah. You get used to, taking part, waiting to hear what other people say and taking part in discussions, which wouldn't really be able to exist with a just two-person conversation, just you and a teacher. So, but I do advise students who are more introverted or very, very shy or very, very anxious to go more with one-to-one lessons. So they may be more expensive, but you'll be more comfortable in those lessons. And if it means paying an extra €10, $10, £10 an hour, whatever, for that comfort, then definitely do that, if you can afford it, of course. Then the next thing you need to think about is your budget. So what I mean by budget is how much you are prepared to spend on lessons, okay? So maybe you find this teacher who's absolutely fantastic and then you look at their website and they are way out of your budget, right? They are, I don't know, let's say €50 an hour. And you're thinking, well, crap, I can only afford €20 an hour, right? Please, for the love of God, do not email that poor teacher and be like, please, can you teach me for €20 an hour? Okay? Because I've had students do that to me in the past and it used to really piss me off. And it still does now. Well, now it doesn't actually. Now it doesn't bother me because now I just ignore the messages or I direct them to my YouTube channel. But I remember I used to feel extremely worthless when students wouldn't pay me the price that I'd put at the time. And I still remember when I was charging, this was many years ago, like 10 years ago, I was charging about £9 an hour for a lesson. And I'd already taught abroad at that point. I'd been a volunteer teacher with some Turkish refugees at my university. So I had some experience. I also had a degree in linguistics, English language and linguistics. On top of that, I had my CELTA training, which I'm going to talk about in a moment more, like different types of training. But still, I had students who just wouldn't see the value in my experience, my degree, the fact that I was qualified, and I had specialized in English teaching. Like, I wasn't just some random person who decided to start teaching and was charging €9 an hour. Do you know what I mean? And I still remember this one girl, she was very, very insistent, like, can we please do the lessons for, and then she, like, kind of gave me a total amount. It was something like, more or less, like £50 for 10 hours, right? And I mean, that worked out at £5 an hour. And the minimum wage in the UK is £8 something now. I can't remember what it is because it's gone up like 20p since I was last there. Minimum wage in the UK. I'm sure it's like £8 something. Yeah, £8.20 it is now. I thought it was £8.80, but maybe I'm just thinking of the eights. So yeah, £8.20. But back a few years ago, we're talking 10 years ago, it was more like £7 something, right? So it's kind of like £1 in 10 years, which is really sad. And she wanted me to plan the lessons, check her homework outside the lessons, and teach the lessons. for £5 an hour, and I was living in the UK. There's no freaking way I could do that. And I was qualified with a degree, with everything, with experience. And she just did not see the value in that. And I was so upset. I was so upset about it. Because I just thought, like, you really don't appreciate me. You unappreciative bitch is what I remember thinking. Like, I was just so upset and so offended that she wanted to pay me not even the minimum wage in the UK. And bear in mind, this woman, she was working, right? And she was making, she'd have been making, say £8 an hour or something like that. So she'd have been making more than I would have been making, because it's not just £5 an hour. It's also the planning time. It's all of the communication time in between, organising the lessons, paying for the booking software, paying for my books and materials, teaching in my house, going to her house. I have to pay for my transport. Can you imagine paying, let's say, £2.50 for a bus ticket? You get there, you already spent half an hour planning your lesson, you already spent 20 minutes checking her homework, and then you're there for another hour. You've made like £2.50 for an hour, nearly 2 hours of work. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you see how upset, it was making me. So please don't be like that. Please don't be one of these people that tries to bargain with teachers and bargain with the price. Because I tell you something, they will just ignore you. And it's fucking offensive. Like, you're just belittling the whole profession. You're belittling them. If they set a price, pay that price. Respect your teachers. If you really, really want to show respect to your teachers, pay the price that they have set out. They set that price for a reason. So yeah, think about that. If you can only afford, say, 20 euros an hour, you can find a pretty decent teacher for 20 euros an hour, depending on the country you're in. Look at what the average is. So for example, in Barcelona, the average is, I think it's about 20 to 30 euros an hour for a private teacher. So in your country, it may be 5 to 10 euros per hour. That's the average, or whatever. Have a look around, see what the average is. And, also don't just go with price, because if you just try to choose like the lowest price teacher, they're probably just a random native trying to make a quick buck, right? Trying to make money super quickly. So it's just something to bear in mind. The next thing is a teacher's speciality. So if you, let's say, for example, you want to prepare for the IELTS academic exam and you contact a teacher and say, look, I want to take the IELTS academic, can you help me? And they can't, right? And they should be upfront with you and say, I'm sorry, I don't have experience in teaching the IELTS exam. Then don't go with that teacher, okay? Find a teacher that's going to specialize in that topic for you. Trust me. I've had teachers in the past for various languages where they've not been qualified, and you can just tell the difference between a teacher who knows an exam really well and a teacher who just has no clue. And it's not good if you're also having to accompany your lessons, like researching on YouTube how to pass an exam when your teacher should be helping you with that as well, So think about that. Other things as well, so not just exam specialities, but your teachers might specialize in things like pronunciation, or they may specialize in, for example, teaching learners of certain languages. So they may be better at teaching, not better necessarily, but they may have more experience with teaching students who are from a certain country or who speak a certain native language. Like, I know a lot of teachers online, they focus on teaching Spanish native speakers English, right? Because maybe they can speak Spanish, maybe they're Spanish themselves or a Spanish speaker themselves. So they're able to help and do lots of translation and comparisons between grammar, things like that. So have a think about these things as well. Think about, my next point is, what do you want to learn? What do you want to get out of having lessons with a teacher? Because a lot of the time students think that a teacher is going to fix all of their problems. It's like going to therapy, right? It's like you want to start going to therapy, so you find a therapist and you go and you expect this therapist to fix all of your problems. And a lot of people think that teachers do the same. They think that, oh, the teacher's going to make me fluent faster. They're going to do everything for me. And it's not the case. You are fully responsible for your studies, and a good teacher is just an aid to that, right? So there's you are the most important person in making decisions in how you study. You know yourself better than anyone else in this world, right? And your teacher is just there to kind of guide you along, hold your hand and guide you in the right direction. Provide you with materials, then you're not wasting your time looking online. They're there to correct you. They're there to guide you. But they're not going to fix all your problems. So breathing the same air as them is not going to make you fluent, is what I'm trying to say. So think about what you want to learn. And it's okay if you don't really know exactly what you want to learn, because a good, qualified, experienced teacher will be able to ask you certain questions to pinpoint what your goals are. So before you have a call with a teacher or try a lesson with a teacher, have a think about, why am I having English lessons? What's the point of these English lessons? Am I having these English lessons because I want to take an exam, because I work for a company and I need to speak English? Or perhaps you're living in the UK and, you need to talk to your neighbours and things like that. Or mums at the school when you pick up your kids, these sorts of things. Think about why you're learning the language and articulate that to your teacher. Like, tell that to your teacher and they'll be able to plan lessons to help you. Because, of course, a teacher's not going to plan the same lessons for someone who just wants to be able to talk to other mums at the school gates while they're picking up their kids, and someone who has to deal with human resources and business interviews and things like that with a very serious businessman and, these sorts of things. So, yes. Also think about why you want a teacher. So, I've got here, what do you want to learn? So what do you want to focus on? What are your goals? And then why do you want a teacher? So again, it's going back to the point of some people feel that they need someone to hold their hand a little bit and guide them. And that's what a teacher is there for. They are there to kind of push you in that direction. Like, don't get lost. This is what you should be focusing on if you want to reach that goal. Your teacher is there to push you towards that goal, right? And you need to think about why you want a teacher. Are you wanting a cheerleader to motivate you and someone to keep you going? Are you looking for accountability, someone to hold you accountable? Sometimes we kind of lose track if we're just studying by ourselves. So having someone that we see every week, that we know we have to see, who we have to do homework for every week. We don't want to let them down by not doing our homework, these sorts of things. So sometimes having that person there is motivating, it's motivating enough to carry on with your studies. But yeah, think about why you want a teacher. Is it just you need a little bit of guidance? Are you really struggling with your exam preparation? Do you find it really hard to find people to talk to practice? Do you get enough speaking practice but no one's correcting you and you want someone to correct you? Then these are all valid reasons. I mean, every reason is a valid reason. You've just got to identify what your reason is. There's no wrong reason to find a teacher or learn a language. The next thing, super important, don't make being native a requirement. Okay? And the reason why I say this is because you need to think about why you're learning English. So, if you are learning English to, again, let's go back to the business topic. Maybe you work for a company and you have to deal with lots of international clients. Some people get so fixated on finding a native speaker, yet in their job, they never have to talk to native speakers. So it's like, well, why is being a native one of the requirements? Okay? And you might be thinking, well, that's because natives, they have better pronunciation, they know the grammar rules, they don't make mistakes. And all of these things, I can tell you, are bullshit, right? Native speakers do make grammar mistakes. We have different dialects and sometimes different grammatical structures which are not considered standard appear in those dialects. I'll give you an example of one feature where I'm from. Let's think of the verb to be, the most basic verb, the first verb you learn, the verb to be in English. I was, you were, he, she, it was, they were, etc. Okay? When you go to the north of England, you will hear native speakers saying, I was, you was, he, she, it was. Yeah? And they just use was. Where was you yesterday? Yeah? That's so common. Or they may even use were for all of them. I were, you were, he, she, it were, they were. Yeah? Where was you yesterday? I were at the shop. Yeah? Instead of I was at the shop. And where were you? It's a very, very, very typical conversation in the north of England. So don't equate nativism, like being a native, to being perfect, because it's absolute bullshit. It really is. It really, really is. We make so many mistakes as well, just like you do in your native language. It's like putting you in a classroom and telling you to teach grammar to people who want to learn your language. Like, you can't, because you're not a teacher, right? You could have a bloody good go, but you don't know how to plan a lesson, how to structure it. You don't know how to correct students. You don't know different techniques for teaching things. You don't know how to explain things. You probably don't even know how the grammar works. So just because you're native, it doesn't mean that you're qualified to teach, is what I'm saying here. So yes, don't make being native a requirement. There are cases where you may prefer a native speaker, and that's okay. So, for example, perhaps I'll give you a real example with me, right? Because my case is very, very specific. So, I'm living outside Barcelona, because Barcelona is balls expensive. There's no way I can actually live in Barcelona. But anyway, I'm living in an area of Spain where the people here who were born here, mostly, speak Catalan and Spanish. They are bilingual. So, I intend to live and die in this country, right? I will be here for the rest of my life. That's the plan. You never know, things might change. But that's the plan right now. So it's actually really important for me that I have a Spanish teacher who can also speak Catalan, okay? Now, finding a Spanish teacher who speaks Catalan and is not native is quite hard. You know, most people who are bilingual in Spanish and Catalan are native speakers, right? They are native speakers from Catalonia. So it makes sense that I look for native speakers from this area. For me, it's also really important that I find someone who lives in Catalonia, that knows the system in regards to education. For example, if I ever have children in the future, I want to make sure that I know how schools work. I want to know how it is to be a child going through the schooling system in Catalonia, because not many people know this, but in Catalonia, some teachers speak in Catalan and some teachers speak in Spanish in the schools. And when I first moved here, I didn't know that. I thought everyone had to speak Spanish, and Catalan was just on the street, let's say. But then when I moved here, this was 10 years ago when I first moved here, I very quickly realized, whoa, hold on, there is Catalan everywhere. Like, it's in the government offices, it's in the town hall, it's in schools. Teachers are using it, it's on signs, it's everywhere. So for me, it's really important to find someone who has grown up within Catalonia. They don't have to be from Barcelona. I would just prefer a teacher who's grown up within Catalonia. because I want to know more about their experiences, because I want to talk about these things and learn about experiences, not just language. I'm really interested in culture because I want to adapt more. And yeah, finding a non-native that's going to tick all of those boxes is going to be quite tricky. You know what I mean? But you never know. There may be someone out there who does tick all those boxes and they're non-native. So there are cases where you may prefer a native speaker, but don't make it a requirement if it's not necessary, because you're just cutting off so many amazing teachers by doing that. And it's just not... You could be missing out on a really, really fucking good teacher if you do that. Do you know what I mean? Who will really, really suit you and your needs and everything. So really, really think about that. And also, before you say, oh, but what about pronunciation? Well, everyone has an accent, okay? There is a difference between pronunciation and accent. Every single person who opens their mouth has an accent. So I have an accent that's a bit of a mix from the north of the UK, because that's where I'm from, but I've travelled, I've lived abroad, I've been teaching for many years, so my accent is somewhat diluted. It's a little bit like a mix from the north and the south of the UK, and I'm happy with that. I really don't care about that, no matter what was his name? John. Was it John? Yeah, John Buffalo, I am 97. When he said I can sniff. I can smell your northern accent a mile off with my hearing. Well done, John. Fucking Sherlock Holmes over here. Do you know what I mean? So funny. So, anyway. It doesn't matter if they have an accent, okay? Doesn't matter if you have an accent that's from London, you know, and you sound like a Londoner or something like that. No, unless you're training to be a spy or something like that. You don't need a native-like accent, all right? It's not necessary unless you want to be a spy. That's what I always say to people. Like when they say to me, Emma, I want to sound like a native speaker. And I'm like, why? Are you a spy? Do you want to be a spy? Are you a spy? So yeah, don't worry too much about it. Pronunciation is the key. Sounding like a native is just a secondary thing, unless it's important to you, okay? So, next thing I want to talk about is qualifications. So, there are many different types of teaching qualifications floating around. And I want to talk about two of the main ones that you're going to see. So, one you might see is the CELTA. So, they will spell it with CELTA. Okay, CELTA. And this, if I remember rightly, stands for the Certificate in English Language Teaching to Adults. I'm pretty sure. Oh, it is. Look at me. Certificate in English Language Teaching to Adults. Yeah, that's... I don't know why my brain cell is taken up by useless things like this, but anyway. So yeah, the CELTA certificate. This is a certificate that is accredited by the University of Cambridge. Okay, so it is a fully accredited course. It is recognized all around the world, and it is usually the most requested certificate. It's the one that a lot of schools look for when they're trying to hire English teachers. So if you see a teacher with a CELTA, if they say CELTA qualified or Cambridge CELTA qualified or whatever, now you know what it means. Now you know that they've taken this really frickin' hard, intensive course in order to become a qualified English teacher. So yeah, and I did the CELTA and it was rock hard, really hard. They always talk about people cracking during the CELTA. So to crack is when you reach your breaking point and you want to quit, right? Or you just start going crazy. And that's what happened to me. Like, everyone who takes the CELTA talks about cracking during the middle of it. Like, honestly, halfway through, I was like, this is way too hard. I think someone told me is the equivalent of a semester and a half of work condensed into 4 weeks. So you can imagine what it's like. It's fucking hard. It's really hard as a CELTA. But after 4 weeks, you're burnt out and fully qualified to teach English to anyone around the world. So yeah, if you see a teacher at the CELTA, Now you know what that means. It means they're fully accredited by the University of Cambridge. The next thing you might see is a TEFL, TEFL, a TEFL course, which stands for, I think it's just Teaching English as a Foreign Language, I think, this one. Oh, no, of course it just means that, yeah. Teaching English as a Foreign Language, yeah. What is wrong with my brain today? So yeah, Teaching English as a Foreign Language. If you see a teacher who has a TEFL certificate, this is a little bit trickier because there are so many different TEFL certificates available online, and some of them are well established. They have proper organizational bodies that accredit them and so on. But there are also so many shit courses, like literally $5 TEFL courses. Can you imagine going to a hospital knowing that your doctor or your nurse had taken just like a $5 nursing or medicine course on Groupon? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what some of them are like. Now, please don't think that if you see someone with a TEFL, they've got one of these $5 courses. It's probably not the case. But I do know that there are a lot of people with them. A lot of them. And many years ago, probably about 7-8 years ago, I used to be an admin in a Facebook group for English teachers. I went a bit like West Country then. Bristol's having an influence on me. But yeah, I used to be an admin. Sorry, I just got completely sidetracked. I used to be an admin in this Facebook group. What is going on? Can't even speak. I used to be an admin in a Facebook group for English teachers. There we go. I've gone more Bristolian as the podcast has gone on. And yeah, they would always talk about how can I get a TEFL as fast as possible, and they would just share all these Groupon links. If you don't know, Groupon is basically like a discount website, so people would go on Groupon and look for these TEFL discounts. Actually, you know what? Let's have a look now. Let's see. Let's do a live check. Groupon. Groupon.com. Okay, and then I'm going to look for TEFL. Let's see. So I can become a qualified English teacher for, let's see, $25. Oh, $17. $7. Oh, fucking hell. $5. So apparently this one course was $119. It went down to $5.50, and now it's $5. $5. Can you imagine? It's another one for $9. And now it's getting into other courses. So yeah, one's about like cooking and stuff like that. What about relationship? What is that? Relationship Science online course. What on earth? There's a course about a toaster oven. How to use a What? Oh, there's some real shit on here, isn't there? But anyway, so to put this into perspective, the CELTA, is it getting quite dark? I feel like it's getting quite dark. The CELTA course, I managed to get a grant, which I can talk about in another video. They don't do the grant anymore, sadly, but I managed to get a grant. Without the grant, I would have had to pay £1,300. So in dollars, I don't know what that is. £1,300 to US dollars, it's $1,582. And that was nearly 10 years ago. So no doubt the price will have gone up. And I think depending on the country, the prices change slightly. So like, yeah, CELTA course price in Spain, for example. I'm not sure how much it will be. They don't even put the prices. Here we go. So for the full-time CELTA, €1,450. Yeah, so it's about the same, actually. The price hasn't changed much since when I did it. But yeah. Oof. Yeah. God, I worked really freaking hard to save for the CELTA course. It was so expensive. One of the most expensive courses outside of my degree that I've ever taken. But one of the best, and it changed my life because I'm here teaching you now. So that just puts it into perspective. These like $17 Groupon TEFL courses compared to a 1,300 and something one. It's it's quite a difference. And these random TEFLs online, they're not always accredited. You don't always get a teaching experience. You don't get observations. You don't get feedback on your teaching, things like that. They're literally just a random course. And people, I'm going to be really honest, many people would just literally join the course and just click through the lessons. They wouldn't read the content just to get the certificate. And that's it. And then they would just have the certificate. So they didn't even freaking read the content. You know what I mean? Just shows. It just shows. And anyway, so those are some different qualifications. And you might see some other ones around. And if you don't know, don't be worried about asking a teacher what their qualifications are, because a teacher who has properly studied and done their teaching qualifications and training, they will happily show you their qualifications, no problem at all. If they don't, then be a little bit worried. They might be trying to hide something there. So yeah, next thing is teaching style. One thing that really, really bugs me, doesn't happen so much now, but it used to happen in the past a lot, is my teaching style is more communicative. So I focus on perhaps showing some grammar, like imagine it's a grammar lesson, focusing on some grammar, like, right, let's have a look at this text or whatever together. Here's some grammar, blah, blah, blah. Let's practice it. And then we'll do some discussion and we'll practice using that grammar in a conversation. It's a lot more communicative, putting the grammar that you learn, putting the grammar that you learn into context and into use. That's my personal teaching style. It's called the communicative method, right? So if you see any other teachers using that now, you know what it means. But I have had students in the past tell me that they don't want that. And it always made me think, well, why the fuck are you having lessons with me then? Why did you choose me? Because it literally says on my website that I teach using this method. This is my teaching style. And I think a lot of people think that they can kind of change you. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of people, they'll come up to me looking for one-to-one lessons, wanting to mold me and change me into the teacher that they want. And if I have, say, 20 private students, imagine if I had to mold myself, change my personality completely for those 20 students. That would be mentally exhausting. It would be exhausting on me. Now, don't get me wrong here. Don't think, oh my God, Emma's not a good teacher because she doesn't adapt her lessons and stuff for her students. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about students who expect teachers to change their personalities. So I'll give you another example. A student many years ago, a very, very serious man, was wanting some English lessons with me. And I could tell right off the bat, good expression, to tell right off the bat means I could see straight away, right? I noticed straight away. I could tell off the bat that this wasn't going to be a good long-term thing, right? I'm not stupid. I can tell when I'm going to get along with a student. I can tell when a student's going to be a bit difficult. They're going to want me to change everything for them, and pander to all of their needs. And I simply can't if I've got a schedule with 20, 25 other private students. I just can't. I can't do that. It would be mentally exhausting and unfair, and very unfair to me. But he complained. that my lessons were not serious enough. And I said to him, well, what do you mean that my lessons are not serious enough? And he said, well, I much prefer if we read some literature. I said, okay, well, you never mentioned that in our first call, that you wanted to read literature. He said, oh, well, yeah, I've decided now that I want to start reading literature in the lessons. It's like, okay, well, what kind of literature would you like to read? Oh, I'd really like to read Shakespeare. So, well, I'm sorry, I'm really not a fan of Shakespeare. No, but you should teach me what I want. Like, in my lessons, you should do what I want. That's why I'm paying you. And that, for me, was just a fucking big, like, no. There's no line I detest more than that's why I'm paying you. Like, they own me. Do you know what I mean? Like, there seems to be some people who forget that teachers are humans and we are people with our own personalities, our own styles and everything. And I think some people forget that and they're a bit egocentric and they think that, well, I'm paying you, so you need to do everything that I tell you to do. Well, not necessarily, my friend. You know, I'm here to help you towards a goal, but I'm not here to change my entire personality for you. Now, if you're working in a language school and you've got, 30 kids in a class or something, it's a bit different, right? You're gonna have to, change your personality a little bit there, but I'm talking about one-on-one teachers here. I'm just showing you what it's like from the other side and how mentally exhausting it can be. Imagine you've got 6 or 7 calls with students in a day, you've got 6 or 7 lessons, and you've got students who are demanding just in the middle of the lesson, you're not a very serious teacher. I would prefer not to play a board game to practice the grammar that we learnt last lesson. I want to read some Shakespearean literature. I mean, like, yeah, just, don't do that. It's okay to say to your teacher that you want to change your focus. That's completely fine if you want to change your focus, but don't blame the teacher if they're just following the plan that you had initially agreed in the first meeting. Do you know what I mean? Like, so many students. I remember have done this to me is what I wanted to say. I remember in the past, there was this one particular student. You also get the students who think that they are better or that they know better than the teacher. For example, this was many, many years ago. This student was recommended, well, how do I put this? I had a student, okay, lovely, lovely student, had been teaching her for many years until she finally got her job, working for her dream company, and she didn't need me anymore. So it was like a bittersweet kind of like, we'd worked so hard to get you this job, and now it's like, bye. So yeah, it was a bit sad, like saying bye to her because she was a really, really nice student. But she had recommended me to another guy, okay? And if she's listening to this podcast, she will know who she is. But yeah, this was a while ago, 6 or 7 years ago. And this guy, he came into, well, we had a meeting together, right? We had an initial kind of chat to talk about the lessons and meet one another, because I don't want a psychopath in my home, do you know what I mean? So I was teaching in my house at that point. So yeah, I was talking to him, like, what are your goals? What do you expect out of the English classes? What do you want to focus on in the classes? How much time do you have outside lessons to focus on homework? Blah, blah, blah. All of these standard questions, right? And he told me that he wanted to start from the basics. He wanted to prepare for the C1 exam, right? But his level was no more than A2, like a very low, B1, right? His level was, on a very, very good day, probably like just very slightly like into the B2 level. But he was like a B1, B2, more B1. And he wanted to prepare for the C1 exam, sorry. So he was B1, but wanted to take the C1. And he came to me and he was a bit cocky. You know, cocky is when you're very arrogant, right? So he came, you know, a bit cocky. He's like, oh yeah. So, I want to take the C2 exam, and I'd like to try and take it this year. I was like, when this year? Thinking maybe Christmas. You know, we've got like quite a few months if that's the case. He's like, no, I'd like to take it like sometime in the summer or something. So that only gave us a few months. And I was like, oh shit, you know, I'm going to be real with this guy here. And I was like, look, I think we've got a lot of things to focus on here. I think it would be really good if we focused on the basics a little bit, had that really good foundation set with the basics, and then we'll build up and then we'll start focusing on that grammar, you know, for B2 and C1, and then we'll start looking at some exam prep as well. No, I want to start with the exam preparation straight away. So, right, okay, no problem. So what we could do then is maybe we could split the lessons 50-50. We could do some exam preparation to get you used to the structure of the exam and how it works, teach you some exam tips, then you can start practicing in your free time. But we'll also focus on the grammar to help you get to that C1 level, because right now you still, you know, need to work on that grammar to get you to a C1 level for the exam. And he agreed. He was like, yeah, I'd like to do like a basics review. So he came to the first lesson, like, you know, this is the next week. He came to the first lesson and we did a review of future tenses, right? So we were talking about going to, will, present simple and present continuous and how they can be used for the future. Now, bear in mind, this guy, he's wanted to prepare for the C1 exam, right? Nowhere near C1. And all I'm doing is trying to... Oh, sorry, I had a message. Okay, no point. All I wanted to do is just help this guy get to C1. That's it. And we did this lesson together. He found some parts of it quite tricky. For example, he'd never heard of using the present continuous for the future. And he was also a bit skeptical of it, almost like he didn't quite believe me. Like, you know, what? You say, I'm visiting my parents at the weekend. Why don't you just say, I'm going to visit? And I said, well, yeah, because in Spanish, you can't do that. You can't say, I'm visiting my parents this weekend in Spanish, because it's only for the present. So I got hiccups again. But in English, you can use it for, you know, blah, 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 explaining these things, right? Things you should 100% know for the C1 exam, right? You should know how to use these tenses for the future for the C1 exam. Anyway, he finished his lesson. He had a bit of, you know, difficulty with the lesson, but I felt it went well. Like, great, you know, we've got these basics out the way, covering future tenses. We've covered 4 tenses talking about the future. Fantastic, you know, we're off to a good start. Anyway, never heard from him again. Never heard a single thing. He never booked another lesson. And then a few weeks later, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I saw him just in the street. I was just leaving the supermarket. I was coming out and he was just about to go in. I was like, oh, hey, how you doing? And he looked a bit shocked, like, oh, no, I didn't want to see you here. But yeah, I looked a little bit kind of taken aback, like I'd just seen a ghost. But no, it was just my ugly face that I'd seen. And I was like, oh, how have you been? Like, I've not seen you for a few weeks. He said, oh, yeah, I went back to Spain for a little bit. But now I'm back. Yeah, I'll book another lesson soon. I was like, okay, well, you know, let me know, because I've not heard of you for a few weeks, so let me know. If I don't hear anything in another week, I'll just assume that you don't want lessons anymore, okay? And I'll have to give your space to another student, right? He's like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Anyway, don't hear anything from him. And then I talked to the original student, like the first student, the nice student, you know, I start talking to her again. And I said to her, you know, yeah, I've not seen him. He hasn't booked a lesson, you know, as your friend. We had one lesson together. And she said, yeah, He was actually round at my house. I think he was with his girlfriend or something. He was round at my house with his girlfriend, and we were talking about your lessons. And he said that he felt that the lesson was too easy and that it was... what was it? I can't remember exactly what she said. But basically, he said that he found the lesson too easy and he didn't think I was a very good teacher because I didn't cater the lesson to his needs. Okay? And of course, that was an outright lie. Like, he literally lied, about this lesson. He's like, yeah, I found it way too easy. This lesson was super easy. And I was like, well, look, I'm going to be honest with you. This guy, he really, we covered future tenses and he was asking a lot of questions and getting things wrong, and I didn't want to go into too much detail about it because I don't want to share, all of my classes with students and stuff. But, I just wanted to kind of set this record straight, set this lie straight. I didn't want this lie to get out because if he's very happily slandering my name and going round and saying, yeah, she's a shit teacher because she didn't plan the lesson, blah, blah, blah. Literally lying because he felt, I genuinely think he felt that his pride had been hurt because he thought he was up here, but really he was down here. And he couldn't accept it. He couldn't accept that his level, I might have to turn a light on because it's getting quite dark. He couldn't accept that his level was B1, and he agreed to do a recap of the tenses, and I literally planned a lesson to cover 4 different tenses, and he didn't like that. He found that offensive, probably. I don't know. But yeah, the fact that he was going, it's fine that he didn't book another lesson afterwards. Fine, whatever. But to go around and, spreading shit, oh, the lesson was too easy for me. Oh, she doesn't know how to plan lessons. She's not a proper teacher. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude. You literally struggled in that lesson. But anyway, yeah, the friend, so my student, the nice student, as I keep calling her, she was like, yeah, don't worry, this guy's a bit weird, he's a bit of a weird friend. I didn't believe him because I've had lessons with you for the past, year and a half or something, the past few years, and you've been great, so I don't know what his problem was, and she thought that perhaps his pride had been hurt a little bit, so yeah, anyway, don't be like that. So the next thing, what time we are? Oh, we're nearly at an hour. It's also getting quite dark. You might have also noticed, people watching on YouTube, that I have a greenhouse behind me. I'm in my office, and I have an outdoor greenhouse behind me. And that's because it's been so bloody windy. I forgot to, address it at the start of the video, but yeah, now you know. People listening to the podcast will have no idea. So yeah, anyway. So, teaching styles, find a teacher who has a teaching style that you like. There are many different teaching styles. There are schools which are dedicated to certain teaching styles. There are schools which have what's called a house style. So, if you want to go to a language school for lessons, then take a look at what their house style is and see how they teach, how they expect their teachers to teach, and how they train their teachers to teach. Yeah. Next thing, this kind of relates to the budget and budgeting, things like that, but find out what you get for the price that you pay. The price you pay. But find out what you get. What's included is essentially what I'm saying here. So if you're paying, let's say, 20 euros an hour for a lesson, what are you getting for 20 euros an hour? Are you getting a textbook with that? For example, if you join a language school, sometimes you might have to pay extra for the textbook that they're using. Or perhaps you get the textbook for free, if you're lucky, If you are doing lessons with a one-to-one teacher, do they check the homework in the lessons or outside the lessons? When do they check homework? Do they set homework? Do you get a video recording of your lesson afterwards? Are you able to email them for support outside of lessons? So me personally, I check homework outside of lessons, unless it's something really big and I'm like, we've got a lot to talk about with this homework. Let's talk about it in the lesson and make it into a lesson. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes I do that with my students, but 9 times out of 10, homework is checked outside the lesson and feedback is given outside the lessons. I've also got my planning and preparation time. All materials are emailed to the students after the lesson. Students can also record the lesson if they want. They record it on their side and then they've got the recording on their side to watch at any time. And I also offer feedback outside the lessons as well. Students can also opt, instead of having a live lesson with me, I am there in the moment with them. If they want, they can also have a video recorded lesson with extra homework set. And I'm a little bit more flexible in that sense. But some teachers, they don't check homework outside lessons. They check the homework in the lesson. So you've also got to factor that into the time. So for example, if you're paying €20 an hour, perhaps there are 2 teachers, right? One is €20 an hour, one is €25 an hour. The €25 an hour teacher checks the homework outside the lessons. So that whole hour is dedicated to the topic and speaking. We don't touch the homework unless maybe they want to discuss it or you want to discuss it. But the €20 teacher, who's €5 cheaper, right? They check homework in the lessons. And perhaps they take up to 20-30 minutes of the lesson checking the homework. You've got to think about, well, if they're checking homework for half an hour, right, that means I've only got half an hour to have an actual lesson and talk to the teacher, not just have my homework checked or read out to me or whatever. So actually the €25 teacher may be more expensive, but you're getting more for your money in that case. So have a think about these things as well. What else? Yeah, personality. I guess the personality point and the teaching style point kind of go together. Don't ask teachers to change their entire personality for you, please. It's really... just find a teacher that you're gonna get on well with. Do you know what I mean? Like, have a quick call with them, 15 minutes, just a quick chat. It doesn't even have to be a trial lesson. Just get to know the vibe of the teacher. And if you think, yep, I would get on well with this girl, then book a lesson with them. But I mean, there are some people in the past who booked lessons with me, and I can just tell straight away that our personalities are going to clash. I'm usually quite a good reader of people, and there are students where I can just feel like I don't think they're going to stick around for too long because our personalities are just not connecting. Like, I will crack jokes and they will just look at me with the blankest face, like I've just, taken a shit on the floor during the lesson or something, and I'm like, okay. So yeah. I'm not a very serious person in general. I'm not very serious in my lessons. I'm a fucking serious teacher. Like, I know my stuff. I know my shit, right? But I'm not a very serious person. Life is way too short to be sitting, not smiling. You know what I mean? So yeah, personality. The next one. Don't find someone with just... Oh god, my grammar's really shit here. I've literally written, don't find someone with just lots of followers. Remember what I told you about the native speakers? We've got really bad grammar. So yeah, don't find someone... Let's change this. Don't choose someone just because they have lots of followers on social media, right? Because when it comes to algorithms online, they don't care what your teaching qualifications are. The YouTube algorithm does not care that I have a fucking master's degree in English language teaching. It is still going to recommend someone who is, more blue-eyed, blonde-haired and pale-skinned and prettier than me. Do you know what I mean? It's always going to favour these sorts of people. So just bear that in mind. Just because someone has a lot of followers online, it doesn't mean that they're a good teacher. It just means that they're good at breaking through the algorithm online. What else? Oh, yes, availabilities. When are you available and when are they available? Yeah. In the past, even now actually, it still happens from time to time now, I get some students messaging and they will be so persistent. I know that they really want to have lessons. I know they do. And I really appreciate the passion and the will to and the want to have these lessons. But there's only one Emma and there are only so many hours in the week. And when this one Emma has many responsibilities, it's really hard to fit everyone in. I can't always, take on new students. Like right now, I can't take on new students. I'm just balls busy, sadly. And, sadly for you. Good for me. Sadly for you if you want lessons. But, I do get some students who will just not take no for an answer. Or they'll say, oh, well, instead of an hour a week, can we just do half an hour? And I'm thinking, yeah, but half an hour is even worse, actually, because I still have to prepare the lesson as though it is like an hour lesson. Like I'm still spending the same amount of time planning, but just for less teaching time. Do you know what I mean? Try and choose a teacher who suits your schedule. Don't try and, again, bargain with the teacher, with money and time. Because if a teacher says, look, I'm not available, I'm really sorry, just say, right, okay, no problem, I'll find a teacher who suits my schedule, and that's it, and move on, You don't have to pester the poor teacher. But yeah, check out when they're available and think about how many hours you want to do per week as well. If you're wanting to do 2 hours, but your teacher can only accommodate you for 1 hour a week, then perhaps think about having 2 different teachers if you really, really want this one teacher. Or if they just can't accommodate you, you really, really want 2 hours a week with the same teacher, find a teacher who can do that. I'm positive you will find someone who will suit your schedule. 100% positive. And then the last thing, yes, this was the point that I wrote down at the beginning. That's super important. Be very careful with the language that language schools use to describe their teachers, right? What I mean by this is, a teacher is a teacher, right? But you will find some websites don't call English teachers teachers. They will call them instructors or tutors, okay? And it's usually preceded by native speaking instructors or native speaker, or native speaking or native speaker. Or native speaking. I speak native. It always makes me laugh, does that one? But yeah, native speaker or native speaking tutors. So tutors, instructors, coaches, right? All of these things, these words, they are slight red flags when I see them, when I'm looking for teachers for myself, like a Spanish teacher, for example, or Japanese teacher. They're red flags because I know that the school is using that wording because they don't want to get their asses sued, right? Those teachers, tutors, okay, they might not be qualified. So because they're not a qualified teacher, they can't always use the word teacher to describe them. As well, look out for wording that's like, I'm just going to invent a language school. I'm sorry if this language school exists, okay? ABC school, right? So ABC English school, I'm going to invent. I don't know if it exists. If it does, I'm sure your school is legit, okay? But yeah, imagine my school is ABC English school, and my teachers are not qualified. you might see some schools calling their instructors something like our ABC school certified teachers, or our ABC school qualified teachers, or our ABC school trained teachers, right? So what they're trying to say here is they're not actually qualified by, for example, Cambridge or a TEFL course, not even fucking Groupon TEFL courses, right, for $17. We gave them some training, okay? And their training is probably just a PowerPoint presentation or something, okay? It may not be, right? It may be full-on TEFL training that they're given for free. But it's not always the case. I can tell you that as a teacher who's been on the other side, okay? I can tell you that from a teacher's perspective. This is me telling you how it is, not from the student side, but from the teacher side and the school side. I know what goes on behind the scenes. I know the wording. I know the very, very clever, manipulative wording that some schools use. So be really, really careful. So, yes, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, watch out for what some schools call their teachers. They might just call them tutors or something like that. And maybe they are qualified, you know? Maybe they are. But just be aware of that wording that they use. Because if they avoid the word teacher or qualified teachers, there might be something there that they're trying to hide. So yeah, and then I have here how not to choose a teacher. I've just put, don't try to mold your teacher into someone else. Teachers are human beings as well, so trying to find a teacher that matches you instead of trying to change that teacher's entire personality into what you want. You know what I mean? Have a bit of sympathy for the teacher that they probably have 10, 20 other students, and if they had to change their personality for every single student, it would be mentally exhausting for that student. And trust me, I've been there when I've tried to change my personality and I wasn't happy, and I'm much happier now. I'm much happier working with students who I can vibe with in the lesson, and we don't even have to be the same in terms of personality. Like, one of my students, she's actually quite serious, you know what I mean? But she knows how to have a laugh. She knows how to joke. She knows how to make mistakes and laugh herself off. Do you know what I mean? She knows how to do these things, and that's really nice. That's really nice as a teacher, really nice for a student as well. Sorry, I'm trying to give myself a bit more lighting. That's a bit better. Oh, there we go. Bit of lighting always does the trick. So yeah, we don't have to be like best buddies in the lesson, but yeah, our personalities, what's the word? They not combine, they complement one another. Our personalities complement one another is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I always get on quite well with my students. And also, don't just choose your teacher. What accent was that? I'm going back to Bristolian again. I think I'm missing Bristol. Don't just choose your teacher based on them being native. And that's pretty much it. So if you're trying to think of some different websites and things, of course, there are the standard ones like Preply and italki. If you go on Preply, don't worry, this isn't like a sponsored podcast episode or anything. I can leave a thing down in the description if you want, though. Let me have a look. If you go on Preply, I'm going to have to go in an incognito tab. Incognito, I love that word. And I go on Preply. There is an option where you can choose. Oh my god, I just want to find a teacher. Preply, stop giving me options. Oh, that's so annoying. Oh, it's like sending me on this little test, and I don't want to do a test. I don't care. Okay, there we go. So You've got different categories. So, for example, like, I want to learn English, and then you set your price, how much you want to pay, where the person was born. So let's say you're learning English, but you want to focus more on, I don't know, American English. Yeah, you might want to find a teacher who was born in the States. They might not necessarily be native, but they may have been born there when they're available. But also there is this tab that says professional. Only professional tutors you can take. All right. So this option shows the teachers who have submitted, and also they've been checked as well, but submitted teaching qualifications. So if you're looking for a teacher that is an actual qualified teacher, you can check that box and get access to all the teachers that have qualifications. Other websites as well, they will have things like that. But anyway, you can have a look at that. As I said, this video isn't sponsored or anything like that. It's just, it's just there. I just want to like help out. Because I also take lessons on Preply. And I also teach on Preply. So I've been on both sides. I know what it's like to be the teacher and the student. And I've had good experiences on both sides. And from other people as well. Other teachers, they've had good experiences. And other students as well have had good experiences. There have been one or two cases where students have said like, oh, I didn't like the teacher or something. But it's like, you could go to any platform and not like the teacher. When there are literally like 8,000 teachers and you just pick like one bad one, you can't say it's the whole platform, you know? It's just that one teacher. So yeah, you can go and check that out. It's just there if you want to go and take a look and find like an actual qualified teacher. What's really nice as well, this sounds like a sponsored podcast episode, I promise it's not. But what's really nice is that you can watch a video to see what the teacher's personality is like. So if you are a very, very serious business person, then maybe you want a very, very, very serious business teacher. Maybe you don't really care. You just want someone who's going to play games and practice grammar using games in a more fun way. Then you can judge that by their personalities and read their teaching styles and things like that on there. So yeah, that's it. God, it's got really dark, hasn't it? It gets dark so quickly. I mean, right now it's not dark, but it looks dark on the camera. So yeah, I'm gonna like a right creep now on YouTube sitting in the dark. But anyway, have a fantastic week. I hope that this podcast episode / video, if you're watching on YouTube, has helped you find your dream teacher. It is a challenge sometimes trying to find the perfect teacher, because there is no perfect teacher. As amazing as I am, I'm not perfect, just like every other teacher is. Just like every other teacher is. I meant to say, just like every other teacher isn't. Every other teacher's perfect except for me. What I wanted to say was, I'm not the perfect teacher. Many other people are not the perfect teacher. No one is the perfect teacher. Okay, we're all human. We've all got our flaws, and that's what makes us human. Otherwise, we would be boring robots. But no one wants that, unless you are a boring robot person and you want a boring robot teacher or something. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you in the next podcast. Well, I won't see you if you're listening to this in the podcast. I will speak to you. You will hear me in the next episode. Bye-bye.